the style that we work in predominantly with figures is the bunraku style, which comes from Japan, which is somebody working the head and one of the arms, if it's a human. The other person would be working the other hand, the left or right hand, the opposite hand, and you have someone on the feet.
Right. Okay, so there's 2 actors, 1 puppet. Oh, that's quite
There's three actors. So somebody on the head and say the right arm, somebody on the left arm, and other supporting the body.
So there's three actors, 1 puppet.
Correct.
So there's 4 of you. That's a lot.
Three of us.
3. Well, yeah, I'm thinking the puppet as a.
Oh yes,
as a
there's 4 of us.
Fourth element.
Yes, so there's the fourth element.
That's much more complicated than I thought.
It's very
I thought it'd be like 1 person and a puppet.
It can happen. You can be.
Wow.
You can be in a situation where you are the solo puppeteer. Depends on how the puppet is constructed and what's required of it. There's so many different ways that people use puppetry, and it depends on what the story requires.
You're from South Africa, but you're using a puppeteer model from Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Why? What is it about this particular kind of puppetry that works for you? Are there different schools around the world? I don't know.
There are. Well, yes. I think, look, that style of puppetry kind of filtered from Japan into Eastern Europe. So a lot of the Czech Republic, they use that style of puppetry. It's probably the most known. And Japan has an ancient history of working in this style. They do it very differently. They're completely in black. You don't see them. They wear veils, and the figure is completely the center of the image. Let's say the puppeteers are not there.
Right. So you've changed it in a sort of, you've taken it and made it a different kind of thing.
Yes, it's evolved quite naturally. I think at the moment what happens is that the presence of the puppeteer is also one of the clues to the emotional state of the puppet and also the story. So we see the puppeteer's faces, if there's an expression from them, the way they're holding their bodies, all feeds into the life of the puppet. I find it very interesting. Obviously, it's a fine balance between too much from the puppeteer, where they are too expressive, and you don't look at the puppet because you've got an actor that's acting. Yes, they're acting. And often actors are the ones that struggle the most because
that's interesting.
They're taught to deliver with their own bodies, and so to then take that and put it into something else can be challenging.
So is a puppeteer an actor?
Yes. They just act outside of themselves. They act for the object. They project everything into an inanimate substance, really, and bring that to life. It's a shy actor. I call them shy actors.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's for me. I would never have chosen to be on stage. When I started working in theatre, I started as an assistant stage manager, and I do follow spotting, and I work follow spotting for shows. When you operate the follow spot up in the roof.
Oh, as in the
lighting.
spotlight. So you're following someone around.
Yes. So it's an interesting way to learn about theatre because you're watching it from a very specific angle.
And you didn't want to be on stage?
No, never. No, it happened purely by accident. I started with marionettes and. With marionettes.
So a marionette is a type of puppet?
String puppet, yeah. So you're working up on a bridge with long strings, and you've got the figure below, so you're really separated. Nobody sees you.
So I'm thinking Sound of Music, the little lonely goat herd, is maybe the most well-known marionette thing from childhood. People would know if they watch the Sound of Music.
I've never seen a puppet in the Sound of Music specifically. I mean, I started with Hans Christian Andersen, The Little Mermaid. I did it for kids. We used to do schools tours to schools in Cape Town and the townships, surrounding townships, and we take them out there, do 2 shows a day. We had a whole bridge that we have to set up all our lighting, strike it, pack it in a truck, move to the next school. So it's a little mini theatre that you take around.
And are kids really good at getting into puppetry more than adults?
Much more, yeah. They have no barriers.
They're a really receptive audience.
Their imaginations are alive and they're willing from the minute you start. There's no alluring them in or getting them comfortable with the kind of form of theatre. They're just there immediately. You know. Well, certainly if I think about my youth and how I used to play, I think it's different nowadays. I don't know, young
I
people
suppose
today.
we play with teddies.
Yeah, you play with dolls.
And then dolls, and you kind of like make up stories.
Make believe.
Yeah.
It's all make believe. Yeah, the whole time. And in essence, I guess it is playing with dolls. That's what we are doing. We're pretending.
How did you get from doing the puppeteering shows around the townships of Cape Town to where you are now? Was it, in hindsight, is it a natural progression, or were there steps of luck and chance? And
A lot of luck. Working in, I was a failed architectural student.
okay,
I did really
that's another element.
I went there to, my parents, I wanted to study fine art, and my parents like, you can't do that because you'll never earn a living. So I saw that the Department of Fine Art and Architecture, it said Fine Art and Architecture. I thought, great, I'll do that. And I was terrible at it. But I learned to draft, and I went to draft for a set designer, and it was the last thing I ever imagined doing is working in the theatre.
So I'm just going to stop you there, but just because we're in a cafe and people have sat near us, rather than recording their conversation too, which they won't want, should we have a break and maybe you can finish your drink and we can find a bench by the canal to continue?
Do you want a coffee or something?
No, that's fine. I've had one, thank you.
No, I was wondering about being in a cafe.
It works and it doesn't work. It depends. It depends on... So we've now moved away from the cafe. We're now sitting in the sun. Oh, there's a butterfly just gone past us. There's some flowers nearby. We're sitting on a bench by a canal.
In the sun.
In the sun, turning our faces like sunflowers towards the sun. You were talking about architecture, being a draftsperson. I mean, there must be a certain amount of design with a puppet. It's made from materials. Someone plans it out. Do you make them yourself?
Sometimes. I wouldn't consider myself as a fabricator. It's something that comes as part and parcel of the work. If your puppet breaks, you must be able to fix it. It's your instrument. It's like your violin, If a string snaps, you've got to replace it.
Do you want to make your own puppets? Is that part of puppeteering, that you have an idea in your head and I know exactly the kind of puppet I want? Or is that not part of...
I love being given something that's been made by somebody else, and then I have to bring it to life. There's something quite lovely about that sort of layer of the process. I'm often brought in externally to bring it to life, so then they'll give me a ring and say, Craig, we've got this piece of work coming up. We'd love you to come and join us and collaborate.
To get to the point where you're at, you must have had to graft. I mean, these things don't just happen.
No, it takes years and years of practice, and there's a lot of luck involved. I think in my career, what I did as a young person, not having a degree, kind of coming out of university, having no degree after studying for 3 years, I failed. It was terrible. What was left to me was to jump through as many open doors that were presented to me. There's this world of opportunity. You can go in any direction if you're prepared to give of yourself.
Do you still jump through open doors now at this stage in your career?
Yeah, because you can always learn that way. I find that something new. If somebody goes, "You want to come try this?" I'll be, yeah, sure. I mean, I ran off and kind of joined the circus at one point as well, because I was offered the opportunity to play a character in a children's circus, which was lovely. It was the first time I was on stage, but again, you're playing as a kind of clown-like character. You have a mask again, so I felt safe. And then from there, the character was enjoyed so much by a director that they decided to bring me on a much bigger show.
So at this point, going back to the thing when you were doing the spot following or the and not being on stage, slowly you're being worked onto the stage. Success breeds success, but at this stage, are you still not? I'm not a stage person, or at this point, did you start becoming comfortable with it?
It's this. Yeah, I started to become comfortable with it only because it's not it's called a serious acting role. It's, being in the circus is I found myself very safe. You've got a white face on, you're not you. And the character, it was very physical and very gestural, so the style of performance is bigger than you. And when I was asked to join a bigger show, this show was long time planning. It was a year or a year and a half ahead it was going to happen, but in that time I had to go to training and learn 5 disciplines. So I had to do this character needed to do a bit of trapeze work, a bit of Russian swing, a bit of Chinese pole. I had to do some trampoline, and I had to do stilt walking.
Those are all very physical things.
Yeah. And so I had to take a year training 7 days a week.
Blimey.
Yeah. But I wanted to do it, it was exciting. And I was never very physical as a young person. I didn't like team sports. I found competition really annoying and unsatisfying. And I was offered the opportunity to be physical, to work my body, to enjoy it without this kind of competition of like who's going to win the game, So I dived in head first, and I loved it.
Oh, that's great. And there must also be a certain amount of discipline.
Completely.
If you're going to train like that for a year, because these are also skills where you can hurt yourself.
Yes, and I did.
If you get it wrong. You did? Oh, is that part of it?
It's part of it. I think, it's a bit like puppetry as well. It's not, physically it's very demanding. You're holding something up in the air, sometimes for 2 hours. If you have a long show, your arms in the air, you have this object which may not be heavy, but after 20 minutes of holding it in the air, it's heavy. So your body is always under some kind of duress. You have to remain strong. You have to train. I have to keep fit. I use yoga as a kind of a tool. You learn about movement, extension, gesture, all of that through the practice of yoga, actually.
It's very complex. You know what? Puppeteering sounds very complex to me.
It is complex, and it's really interesting when you have to teach it, because, like, where do you begin?
Did you? I mean, you're teaching it now. Were you taught it as a student? Did you learn puppetry, or did you just assimilate it through experience? And what you're teaching is your experience.
Initially, I was thrown in the deep end. So the designer that I was drafting for, after architectural school, one day I was busy drafting, doing sets, and he turned to me and said, there's this box of puppets because he was a puppeteer from the 60s, and this box was lying around with a little mermaid in it. And he said, would you like to refurbish the puppets and we'll start a company? And I just went again, yes. I've never done that before. I was like, sure. And that's how I ended up doing that. And then things just happen. Sometimes I look back and I go, how on earth and what did I do right? Because at some point we had a couple arrive from Russia. They immigrated to South Africa in I think it was the 90s, late 90s, and they were master puppeteers.
And what is a master puppeteer? Is it someone who has reached a level of experience which means that they're actually like super, super good?
Exactly. And Russia has also a long history and a culture of puppetry.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
And this couple the husband was a maker, a fabricator, a brilliant fabricator, and his wife Nina was a master director performer. Trained through schools. I didn't train through a school, I trained through practice.
Yeah.
And I remember one day, they couldn't speak a word of English, and she held up a mask and brought it to life. and I was so astounded by what I saw, because this thing came to life and it was looking at me. And when I saw that, I realized this is what I want to do. I know I can do this. I know I can do this.
That's the kind of
aha moment.
the eureka moment.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like,
absolutely.
so that was an important moment in your life. That very room, looking at that puppet, like, aha.
Yeah, and that set me off. And then we actually shifted gears with the puppet company that we had, and we went from marionettes to kind of figures operated with 3 people, sometimes just mask work, no body, just a face.
God, that must be complicated, because if it's a human holding a mask, how to get the audience to focus just on the mask?
Well, I think you play between both, because if it's just a mask that you're holding, your body is involved. So
you're not trying to hide the body is part of the mask.
Yeah. And then from there, we shifted gears and we started to work with a different style of puppetry. And then I went to a party once, and I met a girl who was on stilts.
Just at the party?
Yeah, she was performing on stilts, and she was dressed like an alien, and I thought this was the most fantastic thing I've ever seen. And so I went off and decided to learn to walk on stilts and started to create characters. So the combination of that skill, which I did for many, many years, along with the puppetry, gave me 2 skills that the Handspring Puppet Company required for a show they were doing called Tall Horse, which they had
Tall Horse?
Tall Horse, which is...
Tall
yeah,
Horse.
not War Horse. It was way before they did War Horse. And they had a giraffe that needed 2 people on stilts to operate a life-size figure.
God, that must have been heavy. A giraffe's
again,
neck and head.
Always physically taxing. But the fact that I had those 2 skills and I was working with them for quite some time meant I was right for that role. And they finally called me, and I'd been wanting to work with them for years. So, and then once I built that relationship with them, we've continued to work together since then.
So when in the world that you work in, you don't burn your bridges. You keep good connections, because it's a small enough world that everyone kind of knows it. Well, you're making a face there like,
well,
maybe I have
always say
burnt
that
a couple.
puppeteers are the nicest people in the world, because they
Oh, that's
constantly are letting go of their ego in service of a character. You know, they very easily step back, and they I don't know how to explain it really, is your work means that you are not the center of the universe. You're always a cog in a wheel that brings something into being, and that is your role. And I think that comes from who you are before you did that. It fits into the way into the kind of into your personality, the way that you walk in the world. I've never been I've always been very shy, quite happy to be in the background, so it suited me. I was very happy to be the tiniest little cog in a wheel for something greater. It gave me a lot of joy, and it made me happy. It's enough for me.
It sounds great to work in an industry where everyone's nice.
Yeah,
I'd love to work.
No, they are. I honestly haven't met a nasty, egotistical puppeteer. Never. They're always lovely.
I'm assuming in the shows that you've done over the years, there are puppets which have malevolent characters who are angry or nasty, and horrible puppets too. So you do have to sort of create bad characters as part of what you do. So you're not just being nice and fluffy in what you do. There's an edge to what you do also.
Or characters that are tortured or are going through a really difficult time. And that's when the wonderful thing about puppetry is that it's not totally up to you. You're sharing that with somebody else. You're sharing that with a fellow manipulator, puppeteer. So if it's a malevolent character, you you don't feel like you're the only one that has to
Carry the load.
produce that anger or that distress. You do it together.
So I'm going to jump to what you're doing now. The work that you're involved with, it's something called The Herd. Can you explain what The Herd is? Are there any bad characters in it? Or what is The Herd? What kind of things are they portraying?
Well, The Herd is a herd of animals from Central Africa that have started to migrate because of climate change, because their environment is changing, that they have to cross borders, find new land, find food, find somewhere to live. And they're all life-size animal figures, and they travel north, very much in a way like a refugee would. There's a really close kind of parallel narrative, and it's all about borders as well. So they need to leave their homes, they travel, the journey is arduous, they're tired, they're sick, they're hungry, they're looking for some kind of way of sustaining themselves and being in the world, and it forces them up through Africa. We start with the animals that are native to the Congo Basin, and as they move north, they're joined by other animals that also from various regions, that then the herd grows and becomes more diverse. But essentially it's a climate change project, something to get people to sit up and go, what are these animals doing here? Why is there a giraffe in the streets of Paris?
When you say in the streets, this is not a show. This is something that happens in a public space?
It's live art. So it's made in conjunction with partners from various cities. So we collaborate constantly with local people in the various places that we go to. And then together we create events, kind of interactions with people, partners in these cities, and they're different in every place we go to. So if we work with poets in some cities or dance companies in other cities, and we all collaborate to tell the same story.
To bring a moving art form to a public space without any preparation of the people who are in the public space, they haven't been gathered into one square to watch this thing. You're just moving through a working street. That's a really interesting costume. You must have had various different kinds of reactions.
Completely. I mean, it has evolved. So, when we began, particularly in Africa and North Africa.
So you actually started in the Congo Basin?
Yeah, we started there. We started in Kinshasa, we moved to Lagos.
Blimey.
Then we went to Dakar, and from Dakar we went up to Morocco.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Each city is just such a different character in each city.
It's unbelievable. And not only that, but the cultural, particularly in Africa, the kind of the figure for the African culture is already it's a known. They work with this form, the mask. The figure has always been something that they've imbued with spiritual meaning. So for them, the puppet is not so foreign, and they responded in kind with their cultural figures and shapes, things. I saw things that I would just say it's a thing because I didn't know what I was looking at, because it was so extraordinary and something I've never seen before. These kind of grew in Lagos, where we were working with this entity. Like, let's say that they would start singing and drumming, and we were told it might arrive, it might not arrive. And when it did arrive, it was this grass swirling mass. There's somebody in there. But this is not somebody performing. This is a spiritual act. This is a ritual that you're now interfacing.
And so you performing in a public space, something else came into the space to perform with you in a completely uncontrolled way. It's kind of like, and so that must have been an amazing moment for you to be interacting with.
It was magnificent. It's the ultimate, really, I think, for a puppeteer. you know, I know, like we've collaborated with the Sogolon troupe in Mali a couple of years ago, and the tradition of puppetry goes through one family. I think it's 12 generations.
Oh my goodness!
That's the history of puppetry in Africa.
Wow.
You know, it's as ingrained as you would say the bunraku style of puppetry is in Japan. It's ancient. And it's very connected to spirit. So it wasn't difficult in a way. People kind of just understood it. Whereas if you get to San Fernando in Spain and you're walking through a town and people are having coffee in the streets and suddenly a whole bunch of vervet monkeys come scampering past and they're like, what on earth is that? And then a gorilla comes running past you and then the entire herd.
So there's a lot of energy. I mean, they can move fast as well as slow.
Yes,
they're not just they're not just dragging their heels after a very long journey and looking very dispirited. There's moments of energy.
Fully, yeah. There are moments of energy, and I think that's what makes everyone tired at the end. But it's such a physical act. It really is.
I mean, I'm assuming that it always gets a positive response, and people are glad to have such a thing brought into their lives unexpectedly. It makes them smile, and it makes them think, it makes them question. Are there some times when you get a negative response, or you have to deal because a public space is an uncontrolled space? Do you sometimes get situations where people are not happy that you're there and they're beeping their horns or what have you?
Yeah, we've had a couple of people beep horns when a road is blocked, and it's annoying to their it interrupts their daily life, but nothing malicious, certainly not with the herds. You might get the odd drunken teenagers in a park that are a bit flippant about it all, because it's kind of. But I promise you, they'll remember it for the rest of their lives and probably go home and tell their mates about it. But with other live art performances we've done, we have had, because it's kind of political, the other stuff we've done, we've had people with malicious intent. Somebody throwing a whole bag of marbles under the feet of a stilt walker when we were
blimey.
Yeah, no, really kind of.
What was that? Tell me about that particular moment. So someone's throwing marbles onto a stilt walker because they feel really strongly about what the stilt walker's doing?
Well, it was, the piece was the Little Amal, which was basically centered around the idea, we worked with a company called Good Chance at the time, and they had a geodesic dome-shaped tent they put up in Calais, which initially was to create a safe space for people to come and sing, and it very quickly turned into a theatre. And when they were there, they met a little girl who had somehow made her way from Syria. Her parents weren't there. She'd stopped speaking, and this became the inspiration to make Amal, who's a 3.5 meter high version, I suppose, of this.
So you then made a puppet of a person, as it were, or an interpretation of.
Correct, and we walked from the border of Syria all the way to Manchester over 3.5 months.
Oh my goodness!
And because it's a political act, and it was centered around this whole idea of refugees and welcome. How do we welcome a little girl, a little refugee child, into our community? There were people who were against that. So.
Because of the whole issue of migration,
sure,
and migrants and immigration, and
yeah.
So you were just putting a puppet straight into that discourse,
yeah,
and moving it through the space.
Yes.
But then in that sense, you would probably welcome both the negative and the positive because you wanted a response.
You want a response. I mean, it's always a bit shocking when somebody's malicious. You get a response where people might boo you, or that's quite a soft experience, but when people do something that is intended to cause harm, that's a different, entire different experience. It's unnerving.
But it also must
it validates your work as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It must also make you know that your work is
necessary.
powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for the most part, it's public art. People generally behave themselves, but we've had a couple of moments.